and I do. But I am so excited because I have a friend that I have met recently, and we have uh, common themes that we share in our life. And I am so excited for her to share her story. So I would hope that we can get this message to all of my fans and cohorts and around the world and listen in to a really great show. So I'm going to bring Laura on. Hey,
Woo!
how you doing?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Well, I'm so excited because I believe this is going to be a great show because I believe so much in you and your message. So I'm really excited to say this and welcome, welcome, Laura. I just am so excited. We got the comments now. Yay!
Yay!
Finally.
This is
you know,
love it.
it's, five times is a charm.
Hey,
Hey, so tell me a little bit about um, your story.
well, it's certainly a little complex, but to kind of give you more the Cliff Note version of it, growing up, I mean, I had a very good upbringing in a sense where I had a nice big house, a great neighborhood, good neighbors, friends. And so really there was nothing to point fingers at and say this didn't work out or because you had this. So again, everything was great growing up. And then when I turned 8, my parents got divorced. And
Mm.
at that point, actually, I'll be honest, I was pretty excited about it, just simply because I like to jump up on the counter to get my cereal bowl, and my dad didn't let me do that, but my mom did. So it's weird what, as a kid, what jumps into your mind. But uh, so after that happened, we moved into separate houses, and over time, I believe what started happening was, as a child, realizing that your dad isn't there as often as
Mm.
you thought he was. And so because of that, I constantly wanted to make him proud of me. I wanted to be that daughter that he could show off, that he could, tell all of his friends about and be proud of. And that was always a big word for me, is just I wanted him to be proud. And over time, I realized that things that I was doing was not doing the trick. So, for instance, as I started growing up, I got straight A's in school, or at least tried to, but he'd focus on the B plus or B.
Really?
And so there goes my belief system of, well, it's not good enough. So I then got into theater. I loved theater, and it was one of my biggest passions because I love singing and I love just being a character that you normal life couldn't be. And it's
You
fun.
know, my daughter Kobe
Yeah.
was in theater her whole life,
Mhm.
and she struggled, and but she loved it. Being able to uh, be somebody else
Right.
for a moment,
Right.
for a play,
Yeah.
and hey, let me say hi, Andrew, Chris, Jenny. Welcome.
Welcome.
So I can see the comments. Andrew, you did good. You fixed my Facebook settings. Thank you.
Go,
Hey,
Andrew.
Bo. Hey, Steve. But why did you get into sports?
Sports, it was just, again, like I said, I tried every avenue to make my dad approve of me or love me and want to be there and support me. And so I got into sports thinking, well, maybe he'll want to come to my games. He'll find that enjoyment. And so, and again, this is all everything that I went through as a kid. for these phases are all subconscious. So I wasn't aware that it was all in connection with my dad.
Tell me about more about that. So you didn't realize that it was all tied to that one seeking of love and approval from your father.
Correct. And it went on for years and years, even to the point until I went to therapy for over a year, twice a week. I was able to come to the conclusion that, okay, I keep crying every time I bring up a subject about my dad, when the whole time I'm trying to blame everything on somebody else or, this, that, the other, when in reality, the only time that I cried was when it was talking about my dad. So it was that aha moment, and this is
Mm.
not anybody else. And it's not even his fault. My dad, nothing that he did that impacted my life is his fault, because everything that happens, I allow that influence to have an effect on me.
So how would you encapsulate your high school years?
Oh,
Up and down, or
well, to kind of continue on the path of the story, I realized over time that nothing was working to get my dad's approval. So then I thought maybe it was my body, my image. And so this was around 12, 13, and this will, reflect on the high school years. But I started restricting. So for anybody that knows about eating disorders, that means when you don't eat food. So ended up restricting a lot. I ended up being very, very, very thin, like scary thin, anorexic by the age of 13. And even still, like that got my dad's attention, but it didn't make him like proud or anything. So I felt still a little leery and lost. But my stepdad came into the picture at that time, in which he, being the man of the house now, which I couldn't be the man of the house. So he kind of stepped in and forced me to eat, which at the time I hated him for, because
mm,
whenever anybody comes into your comfort zone and tries to force you out of it, it's never really a good thing, especially when you're a kid. So I'm very blessed that he did that, though, because honestly, I wouldn't have gotten out of it. And I'm
good.
very blessed that 2 years ago, I was actually able to tell him that to his face, because I,
Oh,
I wanted to for so long, but he lives all the way in
pride.
Missouri. And so I was racing in Missouri one year, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But I was able to tell him, even though I looked like and appeared like I hated you at the time, and I did at the time, but I want to say how much it meant to me. So very blessed for him. But then once I got over the eating disorder at that point, I was good. I was happy. I had friends. A new life started over, and then all of a sudden high school hits, which is where your question was. And again, I was doing awesome, had my first love, or lust as I would call it nowadays. um, but probably midway through, when I was 16, I realized that that didn't work out. And so you can imagine having a father that wasn't very present, that didn't want to be a part of your life. All of a sudden, now the man that you thought was going to be your long term thing doesn't want to, or it's just not working. It's not that he didn't want to, it just wasn't working. So it was like all of a sudden this dark cloud starts hovering over me. And over time, I started realizing, well, okay, this is what depression is like. This is what
I was just about to ask
oh,
you
look,
that
there you go.
question. Did you understand that you were depressed?
And perfect timing, because that was the exact moment when I realized that he had a girl's number on his hand after we had broken up. And that was the breaking point. Like, nobody wants me. I'm never going to be loved, and blah, 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 all the teenage year things. But I started lightly cutting at that point. And that was my moment where I could reflect on it and be like, this is depression. Because in middle school, and this is horrible, but in middle school, I would judge other people that would cut, and I would say, how selfish are you? Again, when I was happy, right? You're selfish. You could kill yourself. What about your parents, your family, your friends? Like, it just made no sense at all to me. But the second that I started feeling that depression to the point where I was lightly cutting, because I wanted to be a model, I wanted to be the next Britney Spears. So I didn't want any scars showing because of that. So honestly, that saved my life, and because I could have easily
Wow.
died that way. Same with drinking. Like I thought, having an eating disorder background, if I drink a lot, then I'm going to gain weight and that's not going to look good in modeling and singing. So that was probably a big reason that saved me from being an alcoholic or any drugs. Never was involved in any of that. So God was really looking out for me for that.
You know, so many times depression comes in many forms, sleepless nights,
Right.
um, anguish,
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed. I spent years trying to make up for not being present in my daughter's life, Jane Ellen and Lauren. And I just wasn't.
That you weren't present.
No, I was too busy building my career. I traveled all the time. Um, I still struggle with that because I love those two girls so much. I have 5 children, but I have tried to make it up uh, to them all the wrong things, buy stuff.
Yeah.
And they didn't want stuff, they wanted me there.
Fine.
So, anybody that's listening, um, and you have time, be there for your kids. Be there. Um, it's so important, and they carry it with them like you did.
Correct.
And people don't realize that kids take that to heart. And it really hurts. So, is dad going to show up at my play? Is dad going to be there when, and I wasn't. I
Wow.
wasn't. But I have tried so much to be there now, and just a good thing. So tell me,
Well, and you also take ownership for it now, which
well,
is
yeah,
huge. Like if even if my dad, like, mind you, I am very thankful, and this is weird to say right now that I'm at this place in my life. I'm thankful that he actually kept that separate. One, because then I learned how to love myself. Because before I was just craving his love for me to prove to myself that I was lovable, which when you go in that pattern, you're constantly going to be doing the same thing over and over with your relationships, with your friends. But now I've worked on myself enough and done my own self discoveries within my thought process, how I
yep,
think about myself, my self love, to the point where now it doesn't matter if somebody shows me love or not, because I know who I am. I love myself for that. And if they don't see that, that's okay. That is
yeah.
okay.
If you had to think back to your high school, did you think you were enough or not?
Who? Well, there are very different times. Like there are some days where you feel like you're on top of the world and you can take on everything. And on other days, it could be one thing that sets you off, that you get triggered by. Somebody said something that reminds you of something else. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, all your belief system of how awesome you are goes
Crash.
tumbling down.
How did you mask the pain? You said the eating disorder, but what was your go to get out the pain?
Oh boy. My go-to to get out of the pain. It's funny how when we want to get out of our own pain, right? But we end up punishing ourselves
Mm,
further when we try to get out of our own pain. It's a constant struggle, and I've realized that as I've now grown to an understanding of what my thoughts were going through at that time. But I would eat like I went from restricting when I was younger to then
right.
later on becoming a binge eater, and so I would eat like 3 days worth of food in one sitting. And then because I couldn't throw up, I would go work out excessively for hours and hours and hours.
Really?
But the food was a way to distract myself, to keep my mind off of the fact that, if I wasn't feeling loved, or I wasn't feeling enough, or I was just fearful of what my future looks like. Just keep eating, because then I'm not thinking about it. And then I don't have time to think about the subject matter again, because now all I'm thinking about is, I got to lose weight. I don't want to get fat, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So let me run off to the gym, and then I'd cry for hours.
So
But
let me say, hello, everybody. I'm so entranced by this conversation. Hello.
thank you, Doug.
So, you know, the one thing about life is temporal pleasure brings you pain. It
Yeah,
doesn't get you out of pain.
correct.
So everything that works is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Do drugs, alcohol,
Yeah.
eating, work out too much, and
Mm-hmm.
it gives you temporal pleasure, like, and it brings you pain. So that's just one thing I have learned.
And that's why developing that self-love and knowing who you are and loving that person, no matter if you make mistakes or not, is so important.
Yeah,
Because problems in life are inevitable. They're going to happen. It doesn't matter who you are or what position in this world you're in. You are going to go through problems.
you know
And
why? Life happens to all of us. Life
amen.
happens.
Sure does.
My mom said that you will be disappointed throughout your life, but then you can learn something and get better.
Correct.
And that was a very valuable lesson to me. What
What?
was what was your aha moment when you knew that
Ooh.
something had to change?
Uh, Well, there are a lot of aha moments because, again, as you go through different phases in your life, like you're going to have that, ooh, I need to do something different, or ooh, now I have to change to this. But my biggest one would be really coming out of my depression, because if I didn't do that, I guarantee you I would not be here today. Um,
Mm.
so, really, that started in high school. So, going back to the high school days, where I was at that point where, okay, nothing worked. Again, this is all subconscious, where my dad doesn't want to be around me. I just lost my biggest relationship. Uh, I don't know where I'm going in life. Nobody likes me. I'm not enough for anything. I'm never going anywhere. And so my belief system was way, way, way down here. And because of that, I just didn't have any reason to live anymore. Um,
So can I
I
ask
didn't
you,
really.
can I ask you a question? Did
Absolutely.
you ever I think you're pros. Did you ever contemplate suicide?
Yes. Yes, several times, and I attempted a couple times as well, which brought me to being hospitalized. And I was hospitalized in my lifetime between 17 and 18 years old, three different times. Two
Wow.
for suicide attempts, depression, thoughts, and then once for my binge eating disorder problem. So.
So what has changed since you got on the other side of this?
Well, the day that I was going, well, the day before I went in for my first hospitalization, um, was the night that I almost took my life.
Mm,
And honestly, in that moment, and I hope some of you watching can
mm.
agree and have this understanding in your life of how important God is. But I was stuck between, and like the comic books where it's like the devil and angel on each side, where I had one voice telling me, this is going to
Oh yeah.
medicate you. You're not going to feel any more pain anymore. You're finally going to be happy. All these great things, right? Because I was going through so much pain that I just couldn't bear it anymore. So that was very tempting. And the devil just knows how to play with words, right? And then on the other side, you know, the angel side, I could hear God just telling me,
Mm.
you have
Hold
so,
on.
huh?
Hold on.
Oh, hold on. Now you got so much more life to live. and you have so much to give. This is not your time. And at that point, you know, I released the knife from my hand. And if my
Wow.
mom wasn't there, my mom is like my guardian angel. She has been there through thick and thin every step of the way. And I swear, like,
My mom too.
she is my savior. My knight in
You
shining armor is my mom. um,
know, when I had my stroke and I wasn't able to talk and I wasn't able to read or write at all, I went through a semblance of why me? And I said, well, I have a lot of life insurance. That will take care of all my kids because so many things has represented so much loss in the last 2 years. And we've talked about it, you know. It just, I thought I was in the middle of a crucible, you know.
right.
I just couldn't see my way out. And I believe people will be surprised by this because a guy like me is not supposed to have any thoughts of doing anything to themselves. That's not true.
Right.
We all suffer our own sore toe in life, you know?
Well, we a lot of times put a face on to the
Oh,
outside world because we don't want anybody knowing what's going on inside. We don't want them prejudging us to think that we're not strong, that we're not capable of doing X, Y, Z. So we slap on this face to pretend like we have it all together. That's
oh
what I do
yeah.
every single day. Because then after, right, after my big breakthrough with overcoming my depression, which by the way was not an overnight process. It took years and years of
Me too.
therapy twice a week, inpatient therapy, outpatient therapy, group therapy, a lot. You do a lot of work on yourself to get to where you want to go. And that's the mindset that you have to have moving forward when you want to overcome a big obstacle in your life. So, but like it says right on the screen, it's just never too late. It's never too late. I've been in so many places where I felt like I was stuck, where I felt like this is who I am now. This is my identity, and I don't know how to make myself feel better about this identity, whether it be my depression or then I became a singer, actor, model, dancer. I wanted to be the next Britney Spears, but preferably the one that didn't shave her head. Although I did feel that way inside,
She
probably a little
got a
crazy.
lot of press.
Right, right.
uh,
But there's just so many different stages where you feel like this is who I am now. When in reality, that's not the case. If your heart tells you that you need to push in this direction, if God is telling you go here, then you listen because He
yeah.
knows where you need to go.
My
Um,
favorite quote by my grandfather, he said, it's never too late to become the person you might have been or would like to be. It's never too late.
Amen.
So, how would you fill in that blank? It's never too late to what?
It's never too late to make a change to be the person that you've always envisioned yourself to be. And that's always changing. You know, we all go through the different, again, like I say, the phases in life. And through all those different things, we're constantly evolving. And so does your why, and so does who you want to become. Because again, years ago, I wanted to be the next Britney Spears. Now, I would have never in a million years thought I wanted to be this person that wants to go out and help people and speak out to people and share my story. That would have never been a thing back then because I felt fear of judgment. So this is just a complete blessing. All of my trauma, all of my past struggles in the past have been a true blessing to be able to share the power of what God can do in your life, the power
Yeah.
of what you are capable of doing, even when you feel like you can't. Because there were basically years where I was like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Why am I doing this? But it's that consistency. And just even if I didn't feel like this was helpful, like all the therapy sessions, all of this, the fact is I'm placing myself in a different environment. I'm placing myself around different people who are not fueling my sadness, but they're fueling my growth. And that, even if they're little tiny changes along the way, they make a huge impact. Huge. I cannot stress that enough.
You know, I went to a workshop, even though I was in the business of teaching them. I went to a workshop and I walked up to the speaker and I said, he said, if you can't, you must. Must what?
If you can't, you must.
And he said, you must do what you need to do to get better every day, every time. So if you can't, you must. My mother loved that saying. If you
And you
can't,
live that saying.
you must. I do. You
Yeah.
know, when I had my stroke, all these doctors told me what I was not going to do.
Mm,
You can't talk, you can't read, you can't write. Very marginal. Maybe you'll say a phrase or two in a couple of years. So I was thinking, I can't say it what I was thinking, but when the doctor was in talking to my kids,
yeah.
when I was in the hospital, I had a pen in my hand. And I was so mad, I threw it at the doctor and he ducked. I grabbed another pen and I threw it out. My son was kind enough to say, get out, because I wanted him out. So you can do anything. You just can't give up. You know, if you can't, you must. So I studied neuroplasticity. I didn't know anything about it. I taught myself to read. I taught myself to write. I taught myself to talk from age 61. I had to start over like a baby.
Yeah.
I went home a world renowned speaker and I woke up 61-year-old baby. No,
That's a way to say it.
I had to learn it all.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's the plight of aphasia. So many people give up.
Hmm.
And I hope this helps. And I believe
I
it
know.
will. So, why do so many people stay trapped, Laura? Why do so many people stay in a bad situation or deny themselves the help they need? Why?
Well, I think everybody has their own reasonings. However, through my own personal experience, what I've come to find is a lot of it is the comfort zone of what you're used to. So when you're depressed, you've become used to being depressed. You become used to, for me, when I was depressed, I would start shutting down all of my responsibilities. So my work, my job, I would shut that down. I would
Hmm.
quit because I couldn't handle it. And when I was in school still, I couldn't do papers because I couldn't handle it. All these things in my head that kept trying to
Uh,
convince me that I couldn't handle it. When that was the absolute the actual thing was the opposite of that I could. I just decided not to because I was so afraid of the unknown. So I felt stuck because, again, I would much rather stay where I'm at than to risk feeling worse or having an outcome that I didn't like or
being
having people
disappointed,
judge
yeah.
me, disappointment, all of those things that have haunted me for years. I would have much rather stayed miserable and inside of myself and sad than to see where
Wow.
my potential could take me. And it took me a long time to push that boundary because, again, the time frame of overcoming a lot of life obstacles takes a while. So it's not about just going 100% into,
Exactly.
into your journey. Like you were talking about working out, jump right in and do an hour plus after how many months of not working out, Paul?
A lot. A lot.
a lot, and you realize,
You
oh, this
know
is
me. I was Fat Paul years ago.
oh,
Fat Paul. No, I'm telling you. I was. We have. Yeah. Well, another story for another day.
but you
He-
understand where you realize that it was something you had to consistently work towards to get back into your workout routines. It's the same thing for our mental strength too. When we are fearful of an outcome or we want something quick, we just have to slow ourselves down and be like, all right, one step at a time. And we're
so
gonna get
I'm
there.
going to give you a chance to answer this question.
Okay.
What would you suggest was the first step?
The first step, yeah, that's what yeah, self love. Because honestly, self love for me was the biggest step. Because when I'm able to love myself, and again, I had to train my mind to go from hating myself and not being enough and
Mm.
wanting to please everybody else but myself. I had to retrain my brain to be like, it's okay for other people not to like you. It's really knowing who you are, and through that confidence you attract other people or the people that God needs you to have in your life. And the more that I was able to love myself, especially through the last few years, so here my my walls have been pushed down because the growth in self-love, and with that I was able to gain a closer relationship with God, which has made all the difference, all the difference.
I say it all the time. Take your hand, take your hand, put it right there. Give yourself a pat on the back.
Or what about a
You
hug?
are loved. You are loved. Give yourself a sitting ovation. Oh,
That's awesome. Hey.
yay! So you have to fall in love with yourself because God painted an individual canvas and it's called you.
That's
There's
right.
no one like you on the planet of Earth but you.
And
You
your
need to
uniqueness and what makes
treat
you
it
who you
like
are,
a masterpiece.
right? Uniqueness is your gift from
Yeah.
God. And the more we try to just be who what everybody else wants us to be, the less we're giving that
Oh
glory
my God.
in what He put us on this earth to do.
You wake up and you're not even you.
Right? Right?
And, my granddaddy said, if you don't make a good you, you will make a lousy someone else.
Ain't that the truth? Woo!
Step two.
Yeah, trust that you can get better. I mean, again, like I said before and earlier, that I did not believe at that time when I was going through the depression and the suicide stuff. I didn't believe that I could get better. But the third time I went to the hospital for the eating disorder, I remember there was this old woman, God bless her. We were going for our walk, and she asked me, Laura, I want you to picture yourself 10 years from now. And this was when I was 18. I was like, okay. She's like, can you picture it? I was like, yeah, I pictured myself as a big singer and having a husband with a white picket fence and a little dog. But, I could picture it, right? And I was happy. And that was my big thing, was I was happy. I had control over food, all these things. And she's like, good, because if you can picture it, it can happen. And again, at the time, I was like, you're really funny. This is great and all. I love your enthusiasm, but it's not going to happen with me. I mean, I'll truck through my life the best I can, but it is what it is. But ironically, that in 2018 was my 10-year anniversary of that time in my life. And I reflected on that because her words of visualizing 10 years from then had been sticking with me through all those years. So I was like, wow, this is the reality. I mean, it's different. I'm not like this big, famous Britney Spears, but I was happy. And that was all that mattered to me. And it was around that time that I really started feeling what that true happiness is. Not that fake slap a smile on your face, like, oh, it feels good every now and then, but like within myself.
You know,
So,
I think you remind me more of another girl from Louisiana,
yeah,
Lauren Daigle.
Lauren Higgin.
No, Daigle, the
Oh,
singer.
Lauren Daigle. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You remind me more of that kind of influence than you do Britney Spears.
Well, I'll take that for sure. I mean, I love Britney and all, but yeah,
I know.
just
So, what's the next step? I think it takes time. You know,
yeah. As I said, it's not an overnight thing, which is the problem in our world today because
everybody wants it now.
we want instant gratification. And with that rise in technology, it's like we have everything at our fingertips. But what's the most important is not what's at our fingertips, but what's in here, which takes time. It takes a lot of time. I mean, mind you, there's a lot more access to help self-help things, which is awesome. And I love that about technology. But the idea that I can overcome this sadness or depression overnight,
Likes and shares, likes and shares, likes and shares. You know,
yeah,
you know, so
right.
many people tie their um, like to likes and shares on Facebook, likes and shares on
I
Instagram.
used to be that person too.
You did?
Yeah, when I was going through, because then I got into obstacle course racing, which I've done now. It'll be 8 years in September, and which was great. But I was so dedicated in the beginning to, oh, I want people to like me again. It's the growth, and even though I figured I was much better than I was, it's still a journey, and it takes years to develop and to overcome and to keep pushing because there's always obstacles.
Always. You know, I think it takes consistency is the key.
Yep.
So, what would you talk about that?
Well, as going through what you did with your stroke, it's something where you have to be consistent with and know and having that belief system that you know where you're going. And with that, it doesn't matter how long it takes because with that consistency, you then are able to get there because you're determined to. And you won't stop until I mean, stubbornness sometimes is the biggest gift.
Me too.
Right? Because
I'm
then through that
stubborn.
stubbornness, it's like,
I'll admit it. I am stubborn. I
yep,
want what I want.
me,
I'm willing to work to get it. But you know, when I had my stroke, to be honest with you, I didn't talk that much because I was embarrassed. I couldn't say the words that I wanted to say. Just like consistency, I have to break that down to say it. You know, you never you didn't know me before, but I never said an and or a but in my life. I just get up and talk, no notes.
wow.
And for me to fall back to, I couldn't say the verb tense, I couldn't say what I wanted to say. I can't even think of the words. And sometimes I think of the words and something else comes out. So, and when I hear words, something else, you would say something like, are you starting to get fit? I will hear fat. No.
Yeah. Nope.
And it's hard to have aphasia, but everybody needs to understand there is hope. Just practice, practice, practice.
Like Hope Dealer, I have the shirt on. I thought you'd appreciate that.
Oh yes, I love it.
I was like, yeah, Paul, this is going to be his shirt one
Yes.
day.
So, how important is it to fall in love with yourself and know yourself?
It means everything. Everything. At least in my case, because until I was able to know myself, and the biggest part is forgiving yourself for things that you
Mm.
feel bad
Talk about that.
about.
Talk about that.
Because for the longest time, I couldn't forgive myself for overeating that one meal or not
I
going to
need this. Come on, talk.
or not going to the gym or There's just so many cases where I felt like I wasn't enough, and I didn't like myself, let's just say, in a nice way. Didn't like myself. So instead of hating myself for all those things, like crying and feeling like I'm never enough, reflecting back on my dad and everything, instead of doing that, I I looked at it more as this is just part of my journey. This is part of the process. And I'm going to forgive myself
Yeah.
for those things and know that I always have another chance. I always have another day that comes ahead of me, and I'm going to be able to overcome that the next time. And it's
You
the
know,
positive thinking and the positive reassurance that we give to ourselves that let us work through those rough patches.
I have a saying: understand who you are, be true to yourself, and stay unique. You be you. Because it's hard enough being someone else. I just want to be myself and like me and love me for who I am. So, last step, how important's belief?
Well, like I said earlier, it's your belief system that you're building. Every part of you that, when you're working towards overcoming whatever it is you struggle with, it's slowly developing that new belief system. So for the longest time, I thought I was fat, right?
No
So
way.
I had to start developing a new belief system instead of the belief system that I created, which was I'm fat. I was 70 pounds wearing size kids 8 t-shirt and size kids 10 or 8
Wow.
pants, and I still thought I was fat because I could pinch skin. And that's disgusting, right?
Really?
But I made myself believe, my belief system grew to the fact that if I wasn't below 70 pounds, that I was fat and that nobody would love me. And this is as I'm getting older too, until my stepdad, like I said earlier, kind of slapped it in my face like, hey, wake up. you're not 10 anymore, kind of thing. And so again, it's just building that belief system to change in the way that's going to make you better. So now I can see myself in the mirror. I remember in 2015 was the first time, with all my background with eating disorders and through all of my self-help work, that I was able to look in the mirror and say, you're beautiful. Mind you, I was 20 pounds over because I got injured and I couldn't work out. I couldn't do anything, but I still was able to look in the mirror and say, you're beautiful. And that was one of my breakthroughs for that, where I was like, wow, this is
Wow.
what it feels like. And it's doable. You just have to believe that it's doable and change that belief system.
I want to acknowledge one thing. Brad LeMay said their stroke is okay, but the aphasia is so very hard. People don't realize, for me to say one thing, Brad to say one thing, Bo to say one thing, we have to formulate it in our mind. What's going to be the verb tense? We're going to make a statement or a question or a follow up and pray to God we don't get interrupted, because we do. It's back to scratch. Can't even remember what you were saying. I had a conversation last night, and every time I tried to say something, they would guess. I said, "Don't guess. I'll get it out."
Yeah.
They were filling in the blanks, and it was going back to start over for me. And it's just so hard. People don't even know what aphasia is. If you had to ask 100 people what aphasia is, six would know. Six would know. And two of them would have a good idea of what it is. I was in the hospital 2 weeks ago, and I had to explain to the nurses on the stroke floor what aphasia was. I said, and one of the nurses said, I said, how long you been here? Oh, 2 years. I said, what is aphasia? I think it's some kind of communication difficulty. I said, really? Do you know what aphasia is? Do you know what motor apraxia is? Nope, never heard of it. Do you know what dysarthria is? Nope. So I believe I was sent to that hospital to educate people
That's
on
right.
the stroke floor. It's crazy. And,
Mm-hmm.
one good thing that happened, a janitor that worked at the hospital had a stroke 3 years ago. And he could only say two, 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 two. I said, it's better than me. I could only say one, 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 one. But I had
Awesome.
twice as good as me. But I have been doing classes for him free of charge, and I've gotten him to say his first sentence, and he was able to tell his wife he loved her
Oh my God.
after 3 years. Two, two, two. And I understand because I've been there.
Mm.
I understand. And it's just hard, but we can overcome. And so I'm going to throw you a curveball. Ready?
All right.
So you're sitting down with a young person, male or female, and
Okay.
you have 1 minute,
Oh.
1 minute only to answer this question. What is the greatest thing you have ever learned in your lifetime?
Well, it's something really that I've created myself, which has helped me kind of refocus every time that I kind of get off track, which creating a solid, firm foundation within myself. And what I found that I need personally for that strong foundation, and what I find for a lot of other people as well, is acceptance, self acceptance,
Self acceptance.
self acceptance. Second one is self appreciation. Third one is self validation.
Wow.
And fourth is self love. And all that firm foundation, when you have that, because the problem, say we're building a house, right? You can't build a house with a crappy foundation.
Right.
It's the same visual where when you have that solid foundation for your home, which is ourself, and with all those four things, acceptance, um, uh, self-acceptance, appreciation, validation, and love, then we can start building the house. The problem is, and what I deal with a long time, I build my foundation off of others' acceptance, others' appreciation, others' validation, and others' love. And if
Wow.
I didn't get that, my whole house crumbled to the ground, hence the depression. So when I start
Great
realizing, okay,
advice.
if I'm struggling, and even to this day, if I recognize that I'm struggling, I say, okay, what part of my foundation is not in sync of my foundation, not other people building it for me, and how can I fix that? And then I'm able to, self analyze and, do my little doctor work within myself to then build a house that I can rely on and that I know is built correctly.
Wow. We're going to play a little game. You ready?
Love it.
I'm going to say a word. You say the first thing that comes to mind.
Perfect. All right.
Mindset.
Mindset. I view mindset as the key to success or unsuccess or happiness or unhappiness. It's really the key to whatever it is that we decide we want manifested in our lives.
Okay. What about my mom's word?
Kindness. I always think, whenever I hear the word kindness, I always think of the word that, or the quote that I always love to say, which is nothing but love. Because it's really just giving and caring for other people. And being the person that, or being treated the way that you want to be treated, which hopefully is a good way, right? We all
Yeah.
want to be treated kindly and with love.
Okay. What about struggle?
Struggle. Struggle, I think, immediately of growth, which ironically is not what I used to think at all. When I would think of struggle in the past, I would just become that victim again and be like, oh, well, I know about struggle. Let me tell you. But instead, now I view it as, struggle is a great opportunity to grow if you allow yourself to view it in that way.
By the way, a lot of people love your plan of self acceptance, self appreciation, self validation, self love. So, given
Thank
for
you,
you,
guys. You guys are awesome.
what about passion?
Passion. Oh, I love that word passion. I get really excited, and really that word, the word excitement comes to mind, is because when I'm passionate about something, you can't help but get excited. You can't help but be, full of passion for whatever it is you're doing. So, yeah, excitement.
I call it the E for love from passion: enthusiasm, excitement, energy, and edge.
Ooh,
That
ooh,
comes from the E for just comes running out of passion, coursing through all my veins. you
yeah,
know,
yep.
I love it. What about grateful?
Mm, grateful. You got some good words, Paul. um, I think of my journey. I think of not just the journey that God put me on through this life, but just the people that He put in front of me to get to where I need to be and where I am today. And the gratitude just flows. I want to cry even thinking about it because
Yeah, I know.
it's just every single person, every step. I'm grateful, and I know that it was put in my life for a reason, and that is powerful to me. So gratitude, I do gratitude lists every day too. So it's just a reflection of where I've come from.
When I was in that air ambulance and they took me away to start my journey towards recovery, all I thought about was, did I tell my kids I loved them enough? Did I tell my grandchildren I loved them enough? I was thinking about my mom and dad. Did I do enough? And when you have a near death experience, your life goes flashing before your eyes.
That's what my mom said too.
And I'm telling you, seemed like a day, but was just a fleeting moment. But I realized the answer to those questions. I was a great son, a great son. I took care of my parents. So I can answer that question.
Mm.
And I love my kids. They're my life. They're, you know, if I was what I was thinking, if I'm lucky enough to get through this, I can't talk. I don't know why. I didn't know anything about aphasia. I just like 1 minute I could talk, the next minute I just couldn't talk. It was crazy. But I knew that I was really blessed to be alive.
That's right.
I didn't realize that at first. I was angry and so overwhelmed. And why? I was angry at God. I was angry at everything.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got to have some time alone, I came to the conclusion that people had it much worse than me. I could be happy. I could give hope to people that had aphasia. I could do everything I could do to provide hope.
And that's
So,
exactly what I was going to say about that too is, God puts us through these things that we experience in life, not to make us feel bad or get angry or feel down about ourselves, but because you are strong enough to rise above your stroke to now you made the impossible possible. And not only have you made it possible for yourself, but as you've seen, you've grown this page, you're growing people's knowledge of what aphasia
oh
is.
yeah,
And you've blessed so many people who have
thank
gone
you.
through exactly what you've gone through. And I can't thank you enough for all that you're doing for so many people out there in regards to aphasia.
So, thank you. You don't make me cry. We've done that before. Stop.
Don't make me cry then.
You're happy and you know it. Clap your hands. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes. So
Oh,
I have to ask a question. Tell me about Richard Jr.
oh, Richard Jr. is the light of my life, man. He's my brother, for those that don't know. My brother has autism, and he is just the happiest guy that I know. And reflecting on the question that just came up, what have I learned from Richard Jr.? And that is to not take life so seriously, because I'd always beat myself up over everything, every little thing even. And he was that constant reminder just to, it's not a
You froze.
love. And the
Okay.
more that you are able to do that, the stronger you are in who you are and your love, as we were talking about earlier. And he blesses me with so much happiness. I don't know if any of you have watched Quarantine Karaoke, which is this web page that they created since this whole pandemic, where people can go on. There's over 500,000 people on there where they can just go on and just sing their heart out and have an audience doing it. And Richard Jr., I introduced him to it and he fell in love with it. He's such a character. If you haven't seen it, definitely go on there and check it out. We do songs every day.
Yeah. Just type in Laura Messner and you can find it. And she's a pretty good singer, by the way. I'm
Oh,
going to put you on the spot.
oh boy.
Sing something,
Um,
anything.
Well, I could sing a song. Speaking of Richard Jr., we just did a song yesterday, and we love singing this song together. I don't know. Well, hopefully you guys know it. I just can't wait to be king from The Lion King.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll sing a piece of that for you.
Okay.
Ready, set, go. Gonna be a mighty king, so enemies beware. Well, I'd never seen a king or beast with quite so little hair. Gonna be the main event like no king was before. I'm brushing up, I'm looking down, I'm working on my raw.
So,
Like that.
you know why I found you? I was going through quarantine karaoke and you sang "Oh Happy
Yep,
Day,"
yep. I
and
remember.
I wrote you and I said
Oh,
I needed this today. I logged on the next time and you sang "Rise Up." I really needed that today because it was the day I found out my mom was suffering from brain cancer and she only lasted 5 weeks, you know? So crazy that we had that connection that just one of my favorite memories of my mother is music. And we connected to music. So Laura, if you have anything else to say it because we have this time to be together and you bless my life so much. I want to tell you openly, candidly, you're a blessing in my life. You Yes.
Don't you start the waterworks again.
Waterworks. What are you talking about?
Me.
You.
Saying me.
You. Go
No,
ahead.
start. No, I mean, life's a journey. Said that over and over again. And really, it's just
Your froze.
me every single day. And when you can allow yourself to let go of that fear, of the unknown, of life, of judgment, of whatever comes up for you, you open your eyes to a whole new world. A whole new world.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry. I had
Do
to.
you do that all the time?
Yeah, I
You
totally
think
do.
of something
Oh,
and you
yeah,
sing it?
totally do. My friend Kim will tell you all day, all the time. Uh,
Well, I am really grateful for you being so transparent. So say that word that I can say. I'm trying to work on that. Vulnerable.
Vulnerability.
Thank you. And I've got to practice that and practice that because when I taught, I said the best thing that's going to happen to you. I am the most vulnerable and flawed guy in the room, and I'm not scared to talk about it.
That's
That's
right.
where you're going to learn.
Me
And
too. That's,
that
you know,
was my strength as a teacher. And checking my ego at the door because it says edging God out. I don't want to do that because he has the big stick.
yes, he does. Sure.
Exactly. So till next week, be blessed and may the speech be with you and have a level 10 day. For Laura and I, thank you and all the reasons you tuned in. I hope you got something out of this and thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for all that you do for everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.